So in this video, I'm going to go over a little bit of an integration with ArcPro and VSCode here. Now, if you're on a one user machine and you're always logging in as the same user, what I'm about to show you may not affect you. But in a multi-user environment, this can have an effect. And the effect is that sometimes, depending how Visual Studio Code launches, it can kind of get confused about where its extensions are. And that. And so there is a little thing that can solve this. And again, this might be for more of a multi-user environment and where you have like a centralized installation of core extensions like we do at BCIT. So set VSCode extensions, yes, plural, I think it is. Yeah. So if you have this environment variable set, and it means that when you install an extension, it will always go into this directory. And no matter how VS Code gets launched, right, through the desktop or ArcPro calling it, it will always be able to find its extensions. And we want it to be able to do that so it can find the Python extensions that we've installed in that. So I have a bunch of extensions installed. So no matter how Pylance and Python and Qt for Python, no matter how VS Code gets launched, it will always be able to find its extensions, which is what I want. So that's one little gotcha that I've ran into in that. And then we need to actually tell ArcPro to launch code, right? So launch VS Code as the editor. And so that is typically, if you're on this page, settings, options, geoprocessing, and script editor. And then you just need to browse. I don't know if I'll be able to get this right. Minus and C apps VS Code code.exe. Now, maybe I will browse to that location. Yeah, still didn't. So up here, I'll just C apps VS Code, and we're looking for code.exe. So that will launch Visual Studio Code. So within ArcPro, if I say, hey, the script, and I right click on it and go edit, then it will load that into VS Code for me. Okay, so I believe that's set up. I'm going to make a new project in that, and I will go new map, and I'm going to put it where that's pretty close. It's just T8138. I'll put it in my mod 3, and I'm going to call it demo 0000, and it's going to be about try except. Okay, and I'll just go OK, and it's going to get busy making that. Might take a few seconds. Then we'll jump in and we will make a tool, a script tool for our toolbox. And that, so I'll just click on here, right click. I don't think I have anything in here. No, it's empty because it's brand new. I'm going to make a new script. Okay, and I'm going to give it a name. I'll call it demo 00 try except. So typically no spaces up here and no strange characters usually, or try to avoid them. But when you do the label, you can have that. So we'll call it try except demo 00. This is our first demo. So the label can have spaces in it. Now, script. Now, depending on what version of ArcPro you're running, if you're using the workspace, you're going to be 2.5, and I'm running 2.7. So on 2.7, there is a different way. You can actually, instead of just browsing for a script, you can make a script from scratch in that. But what I'll do is I'll show you the old way I used to do it, two-step process, because this part of the menu is not available to you if you're running 2.5. So what we'll do is we'll browse. Usually put you right in your project folder. So I'm going to right click on this area, and I'm going to go folder, and I'm going to go scripts. So all my scripts I want in here, there. And then down in here, I'm going to put a file, but there is no new file. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to open up the file manager, and I will navigate to this directory. Now I can do something like this, click up here and get the path, Control A, Control C, and open that up in Explorer. So I've opened up Explorer, and I will paste that path in up here. That's that directory, and I will basically touch a file, new text file. I'm going to call it main_try except .py. The .py actually is pretty important, so no .txt, so just .py. Yes, I do want to change that, and that way that will trigger some stuff in VSCode to say, hey, it's a Python file, load the Python extensions in that. Now, I'm just going to cycle back here, hit the refresh button, and there it finds it. Now, again, if you're in 2.7, you can make that script directly using that second menu choice. But if you're in 2.5, you have to do it with the method, make the file, refresh, and then bring it in. So I'll bring it in. Now, this file is basically going to be empty. Give it a second. It has refreshed and is kind of ready. So what I'm going to do is right-click and go Edit. And this will open up in Visual Studio Code. This is a blank file. If you are on 2.7 and you use the second menu choice, this make the script, it actually puts a little bit of a template in here for you. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up some snippets I have, File, open up File, and I will go down to my D drive. Actually, so my demos folder, just T8138. I have some snippets here. I'm going to grab all these. Shift select them all and open them up. So I have a header, Control A, Control copy. I'll put that in my Python there. I'll get this filled in. It looks like it stopped spinning, so that's good. So I'll just fill this in real quick. I will also fill this in. Purpose, a demo, a try, except with ArcPro. Oops. And so I do it slightly differently if I was just in Python, but because it's ArcPro, I'm going to have to add a little bit. Some of the dependencies will be ArcPy and traceback. Now, traceback is part of the standard Python library, so it's going to be there. ArcPy is not. So right now, it has remembered that I have used the ArcPro conda install. Now, you might, it's really important when you click on here, you can select which virtual environment you want to run. If it's the first time doing running VS Code with ArcPro, it's really not going to know where that is. So you need to enter a path and you can browse for it, but you have to know where ArcPro is installed. So I installed it on C apps ArcGIS Pro, then down into the bin, down into Python. You got to get into this envs directory, and then get into the ArcPro Python 3 and get the Python exe there. Okay. I have other virtual environments for other courses, but it's really important that that is your executing environment because that is where ArcPy is. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'll switch off of that particular one. Okay. No errors yet. But when I put my imports in, right, I'm going to import ArcPy. And then it's going to wonder, well, is ArcPy a thing? Now, if we hover here, this is an error. It is in red, or in that, or should be. ArcPy is unknown, right? So my code checker, right? Import ArcPy could not be resolved. So Pylance, which is like a code checker, is saying, I looked for ArcPy, didn't find it. Okay, and that. So it's another issue you can run into. I'm going to flip it into the ArcPro virtual environment, and it might take a second in that, and boom, the color changed. Right. All it's saying now is I've never seen a word like ArcPy before. Maybe that's a spelling mistake in that. So I'm not too worried about that. Oh, I'm going to finish off my comments. We'll go 2021. Just notice that 0506, and that was me who did that. So I'll just initial that. Okay. So a few things there just to review. You know, having that environment variable for VS Code so it doesn't get lost. getting the having a scripts folder in your project never hurts. Make sure you use the .py extension because that triggers VSCode, and then make sure VSCode is using the correct interpreter because that's the one that knows about ArcPy and that. So so far so good. We've gone through a couple of these snippets and that. I'm just going to jump to this try except. Now, very simple try except is just to get off, sort of to get or try to demonstrate, or the fact that we need to communicate back to ArcPro as much information that we can. So I'm going to paste that in. So your code goes in the try block typically. So try colon and then indent, and all your code goes here. Now I have a simple print statement, but I'm printing out a variable called junk, but that variable doesn't exist. Pylance is telling me if I hover over this, right? Pylance is like, yeah, that I don't know what that is. That's going to cause a problem, right? That sort of thing. Now it depends how you set things up and what language servers you're using in your extensions, how the errors get displayed or displayed at all as well. Now the reason for the traceback is that sometimes if you do try catch, I've seen other people just try to send back add message, like ArcPy add message, but it is an error, sort of thing. And so if an exception does occur, which is kind of like an error, instead of going add message, I'm going to add error. And then, but what I want to send back is all the information from the interpreter about, the whole call stack about, I was down in this function on this line and this blew up kind of deal, to give the developer, yourself, as much information as I can about, how to find out what happened in that. So I have autosave on, right? Autosave on. If you see a little dot up here, it means your file isn't saved in that. So make sure you've saved the file. Otherwise, the code that ArcPro is going to run is not the code you're looking at in this on the screen here. So I'm going to go back to ArcPro, and I'm going to right-click and open this, which will open up the tool to be ran, and then I click the Run button. Okay, and it comes back pretty fast with an error. But the key thing here is that the information that got sent back. So this traceback, and that's why I'm using it, right? It says, look, I was in this file, so it tells you what file you were in, right? I was in this file, I was on line 25, right? And that's where things went wrong. And then it's when I tried to print this thing called junk. And the problem was that junk was not defined, right? So typically what you find if you have these type of errors, it's a small typo in the variable name and that sort of thing. But at least you're told exactly what line is on there. If you don't use the traceback, what happens is you're guessing at where the error occurred. And then people put all these add messages in to try to say, well, it happened between these two add messages, so it's somewhere in these 5 lines. Why not throw it as a proper error and send the traceback information all the way up to ArcPro and say, look, this is the line it happened on, and this is the issue we had. And so that was just a simple way to start using structured error handling in Python with ArcPro, but also integrate into ArcPy. You add messages back. They're just like information. But if you have an error, like an exception, might as well add it as an error, but also send the traceback information so that the person who's writing the tool can know exactly what line failed. That's all for now.